Nice to meet you. Fantastic. Very nice to meet you.
Thank you for being here. So sorry.
Hello, Team Zulu. You will have 20 minutes to present your solution to the judges. You will be given a warning when 5 and 2 minutes remain. After 20 minutes, the presentation will be stopped immediately and no information will be considered after the time has lapsed. Following your presentation, there will be a 10-minute question and answer. You will be given a warning when 2 minutes remain. The question and answer will be stopped after 10 minutes. You may begin when you're ready.
In 1913, Henry pioneered the assembly line, and from that day on, manufacturing has forever changed. Companies now are looking for ways they can optimize their supply chains, cut their bottom lines, and increase profits. When an object went in every step of the assembly line, they were looking for ways to streamline it and make it better. And that trend has continued today, but in a little different way than with technology. Hi, my name is Andrew Montgomery, and I'm joined today with my colleagues, Kenzie Wolf, Ankit Tabala, and Ben Kozowski, and we're here to present our strategy for Nidec. So today we're going to talk about a few things. One, who is Nidec? How are they positioned within the manufacturing community? How are their competitors positioned? And how are they using technology to continue this trend towards optimizing supply chains, to cutting the costs, and improving the bottom line? Second, we're going to look at some products that Nidec offers, specifically how they're using the Internet of Things to continue to optimize, continue to make data-driven results in order to become a better company and improve their competitive edge. Third, since we're using data in the solution, we want to understand how that fits in with our consumers and ourselves from a legal standpoint. We want to make sure that our data is safe, and it's private, and it's secure. And lastly, with this strategy, we want to understand how that's going to fit into the long-term plan of Nidec. We're not looking for quarter one, quarter two results. We're looking for long-term success. So, the situation. Who is Nidec? Nidec's parent corporation was founded in 1973 in Japan, and they're a leading manufacturer of a lot of industrial and automotive products. Now, their smaller corporation, Nidec Motor Company, was acquired in 2010 by Emerson Electric, and they manufacture a lot of small electric motors. And they're one of the leading manufacturers in this space, and they want to continue to be so. And in order to do that, they're looking for a vision for the 21st century. How can they leverage technology? How can they leverage the Internet of Things in order to become sustainable and keep their competitive edge as they continue year over year? So looking at the industry as a whole, we see by 2020, there's expected to be over almost 200 billion in revenue in the industry. This represents an enormous opportunity for Nidec as a corporation. There's an immense room for Nidec to enter many different niches in the manufacturing space so that they can continue to grow. And this growth is seen as 3% year over year. And that means that this growth can be sustained, right? They can continue to grow every single year because there's so much growth in the industry and there's so much market space to inhabit. And lastly, there's this trend towards cutting costs. Right, technology is becoming ever more present in the industry, and it's important that Nidec stays up to par with its competitors, who are also introducing a lot of new technological impacts. That way they can continue to improve their bottom line and optimize supply chain. So, what is the Internet of Things? Traditionally, we think of it as interconnected devices, but it's much more than that. It's connecting objects. We see in 2019, there's expected to be 24 billion objects connected over the Internet. By 2020, that number reaches almost 100 billion. And if Nidec's not taking advantage of the Internet of Things and this connectivity between objects, we know their competitors will, and we'll lose that competitive edge. So it's important that Nidec continues to work with the Internet of Things to optimize every step of the business. So who are some of their competition? Companies like GE and Cisco, these large electronic manufacturers. They're currently employing their own data-driven analyses to improve their own processes. And if Nidec does not do that, they'll fall behind. We've seen time and time again. When companies fail to adapt to changing times, they often fall behind. So it's important that Nidec has a strategy to implement technology in order to continue to serve its customers best, provide value for themselves, and for the entire marketplace. So what does this mean for Nidec? First, they want to pioneer predictive maintenance technology. And that means no longer can you react, you have to predict. You have to understand the issues before they arise in order to become most efficient. And secondly, with this efficiency comes a lot of responsibility. We have to make sure that this data that's driving these results is taken care of. And our consumers know that their data is private. And lastly, with this strategy, it has to be sustainable. It has to be able to work all the way into the future. So that 10 years from now, Nidec is still a leading corporation in this manufacturing space and is still ahead of its competitors. And now I'll pass it off to Kenzie, who will talk about the first solution.
Thank you, Andrew. In response to the growing trend towards IoT technology in the industrial and electronic components industry, Nidec implemented Foresight. Foresight is a remote handheld device that connects to equipment and monitors equipment health, specifically looking at equipment temperature and vibration. It then collects data, aggregates that data, and stores it in a cloud portal where users can access it via an online portal. Foresight's greatest strength is that it allows the user to engage in predictive maintenance. Predictive maintenance is what will allow our users to cut cost. Specifically, it's very beneficial in that it will inform the user exactly when the equipment is expected to break, so that there's no lag time with machine breakdowns or lags with repair. Additionally, this will improve our own factories because this can be implemented in our facilities. This is really a win-win situation where the customer will benefit because they will be having a more efficient facilities, and Nidec will be benefiting also from more efficient facilities. Additionally, this will open the stream of revenue for Nidec because our customers will be cutting their costs, which allows them to spend more.
So whenever we talk about technology, we end up talking about all these technical terms. We often find ourselves immersed in this glamorous space of vocabulary and a lot of buzzwords. But what's the point of technology at the end of the day, especially for a corporation whose mainstream business is sometimes very different from technology? Technology is important in the 21st century because technology in this space creates value. So in order for us to understand why we're investing in technology, and oftentimes it may seem independent of business streams, it's to better understand what our consumers are seeking. What is the value that we can provide by implementing a certain technology? When we look at Foresight, what does Foresight really do? Foresight gathers data from sensors that exist within motor systems. Now, for any one factory, any one manager operating a factory, there's not always one motor in a factory. There may be many. There may be hundreds, there may be thousands. And Foresight at present, the interface that it has, shows you really what one sensor is detecting with respect to vibrations, with respect to temperature. But for a factory manager, what's more important is the net impact of that. How does that tie into costing? How does that tie into maintenance costs? How does that tie into logistics for a specific quarter or for a specific year? We have to make our technology accessible, and we have to make these data points more than buzzwords. This leads us to a three-pronged strategy to implement technology by creating value over 3 years. In the first phase of the project, what we're really emphasizing is creating, accumulating, and really calculating enough volume of data that allows us to interpret it. What does this data mean? What can we do with it? And using this data not just as independent, isolated data points, but actually delivering strategic recommendations by interpreting what it means. In the first step of our project, we want to take Foresight beyond just its existing interface and deliver strategic recommendations. In the second phase of our project, we hope to actually use these recommendations to further refine our algorithms. We're collecting a volume of data, there's things we're interpreting from it, and there's so much that we can do with it for ourselves and for our customers. To our customers, this prediction maintenance is what really matters, because we're not in an age and day of reaction. It's not enough to know what the machine is doing at one point in time. It's important to know what it's going to do. It's important to move one step ahead, and that's the value we can bring with technology. So in the second step of it, we want to integrate all of this data that's collected and actually refine our own algorithms and refine the way in which we're delivering data. What this creates for our customers and what it creates for us is a sense of dependency. It gives our customers a reason to hold on to us over any of our competitors. And with that, what we end up doing is bolstering stronger, lasting relationships. In the third phase of this project, once we've built those relationships and once we've found a way to use accurate, usable data, we want to start charging our customers for the insights that we're providing. Because at this point in time, not only are these revolutionary, these give you key insights into business that you may not be able to provide with the data that you're collecting yourself. With this proprietary system, what we're really looking to do is make data usable and therefore make data valuable. This means looking at our interface at present, which really just looks at one motor sensor and tells you that one specific sensor at a time. We want to change the delivery process and we want to make it more accessible. So that one sensor and one motor now transforms into really an entire factory. gives you insights into maintenance costs, it gives you insights into what a specific factory requires, and it's accessible at one point in time. So it's tracking data as a whole, making sure you're getting alerts where it is, and using that to find summarized recommendations that are usable and applicable to you. That to us is value, and that to us is well thought out value.
So this was not an arbitrary solution that we just came up with. We considered many alternative options. Some of these being selling sensors directly to our end consumers, licensing out the technology, giving complete data access, or only using Foresight in our factories alone. We really analyzed these options, and while they do have their benefits, we also see that they do have risks, and we believe that these risks are too great to take. These risks include alienating our current customers, encountering data, privacy or ownership issues, losing our competitive advantage, or losing revenue. We believe that we should not be taking these risks. Based on these considerations, we know that our solution will be the most effective in integrating Foresight into Nidec's business plan and sustaining future growth. I'm going to pass it off to Ben to talk about our policy on data protection and privacy in accordance with our solution.
Thanks so much, Kenzie. So we've talked a lot about the value that we're going to be able to bring to our customers through this new platform and all the ways that we're going to be able to sort of save them money and really drive this value and cost efficiency. But now we got to focus on how we're going to protect this data. So there's two main threats to the IoT industry that we sort of identified. The first being security and privacy. Take, for example, some recent major data breaches like Equifax or Yahoo. These companies had their reputations tarnished beyond belief by massive data breaches, and they likely will either never or will take them a really long time to recover that loyalty and trust from their customers. More so moving to the future, we think that as the data gathered by IoT companies becomes more and more valuable, we think that by 2020, almost 25% of attacks are going to be targeted toward these IoT companies. And yet, most IoT companies do not invest enough money in IoT security. We think at Nidec, that's got to change. The second major threat to our IoT business is the change of pace in regulations. So across the world right now, as technology is rapidly expanding, lawmakers are struggling to come up with new laws and regulations to protect privacy. And we need to be on top of these regulations as they continue to come out to make sure that we're in compliance with all these laws. So jumping into security and privacy, how we're planning on solving it, the first stage goes with data consent. So what's really important is to be clear who's going to own this data. Every time we are going to sell any piece of our equipment to anyone, these final customers are going to have to sign an agreement giving us full control of this data. Now, why would they do something like this? Well, I'll tell you a couple reasons why. The first is data minimization. We are only going to take the data that is required. We're not going to be taking any extra data, and the only thing that we're going to be taking is data that's going to help us improve our own predictive algorithms that will then trickle down to lower their costs and help us better be able to predict when their machines are going to break down. Second of all, we're going to pledge to never sell their data to any third parties that they don't want us to. And finally, we are going to ensure that their data is going to be secure. And the way we're going to do that is through the Microsoft Azure platform. Now, Microsoft Azure is one of the best high-level encryption services out there, but there's a couple reasons why Azure is particularly useful strategy for Nidec to engage in. The first reason is that they secure each point of access, whether it's direct or remote. So that means no matter if you're looking at the factory itself or on your phone or on a computer, all of that's going to be secure through Azure. And secondly, and maybe even more importantly, is that it's going to be able to help improve manufacturing efficiency. And this platform is standardized across all sorts of different types of machines and products. So the value that this is going to bring us is one, product lifecycle management. As we and our customers go through creating new products and updating our products, the Microsoft Azure platform is constantly able to update and ensure that it has the highest level of security on all our products at all times. The second thing is that the Microsoft Azure platform is device agnostic. What this means, again, is that this platform is standardized across all sorts of different products, so we won't have to go to get a different security solution for different types of machines and products that our customers are using. And finally, flexible settings on Microsoft Azure allow us to be able to customize to our own clients what type of security settings that they want, dependent on the different types of machines and factories that they're running. So the second major threat that we identified was regulation. Now, according to some new EU regulations, Chief Data Protection Officer is something that would be required at a company like Nidec. We plan to go a bit above and beyond just hiring a Chief Data Protection Officer. We plan to create an entire data protection team with directors, one for each region, that are solely focused on monitoring and sort of seeing the different regulatory environments across different regions across the world. What this will allow us to do is ensure that we're always complying with any data regulations and privacy regulations, and ensure that we aren't going to have any liability problems in terms of data and privacy. And we plan to have an entire associate team that's working directly for the Chief Data Officer, that's monitoring these global macro trends, and is also able to help out any of the directors if there's any particular regulatory concerns in their region. I'm now going to pass it off to Amanda, who's going to talk about progress.
Thank you. So we've talked a lot about the solutions that we've presented today, and now really the question arises, are these reasonable? They sound like a lot, they sound like they require a lot of resources, but these are solutions that we've well thought out, taking into account a lot of the risks that we've mentioned associated to other options that exist. Now really when we assessed what the viability of a project like this is, not only is it something that's exciting, not only is it something that can really revolutionize the landscape and take into account all the risk factors that exist within this market, it's also something that's financially viable. What does that mean? According to conservative estimates that take into account the company's growth aligned with the growth average seen in the industry as a whole, which is about 3%, we project the net present value over 5 years of each of these projects in total is going to be about $750 million. Now it seems like a lot, but over 5 years, we actually took into account having a loss during the first year, taking into account if we implement all of these projects together. What does the timeline really look like though? And what do these numbers really mean? When we look at how these projects can be implemented, we thought of solutions that would work in synergies with each other. When we think about product groups or when we think about protection, all of these solutions go hand in hand, and we want to make sure that they are implementable across at the same time, taking the same amount of resources, taking the same amount of, and really leveraging the people in the organization that can implement these solutions. As far as the timeline is concerned, we see all of these solutions being capable of being implemented within the 5-year time frame. However, some of them taking, of course, longer to really reach their full potential. As far as the 5-year timeline is concerned, we see collecting, providing data, installing sensors, installing Microsoft Azure, and onboarding data protection team is something that can be kickstarted right off the bat. Some other solutions that we've presented, like improving algorithms and monthly data fees, are those that we see being solutions that we can implement in the longer run. We want you to see our solutions today as a culmination of the company's strengths and the culmination of the company's weaknesses, and what it tells us about the company's values and the direction in which we want to take it. The key questions that we sought out to answer here today were really, how do we position Foresight to gain a competitive advantage? And secondly, how do we use the resources in the organization while maintaining the data privacy, clarity, and ownership, and still being trailblazers in data analytics? And our solutions to these were, one, to strategically commodify Foresight. What can we do with the data over what period of time to give us the strength that we need? And secondly, how can we partner with Microsoft Azure while also providing an organizational framework that's internal, sustainable, and easy to implement? Now, I know we've said a lot of buzzwords today, and I know it sounds like a lot, but at the end of the day, these are solutions that we have genuinely thought through and believe that will be sustainable. It sounds like a lot. Technology is always a whirlwind, and especially as a millennial, I can say that it's something that we encounter every day. And it sounds like we're moving fast and forward into a world of technology, but we're holding on to the core values of any manufacturing firm. You build a future one component at a time, and we hope you will do the same. Thank you. We'll now open the floor up to questions.
Well, thank you for your presentation. Okay, that's nice. One thing that I'd like some more clarity on is I'm still not clear on how you're generating revenue. We talked about given away the sensor initially for year one. Then there was also a statement about we're going to charge 10% of what the maintenance budget was. So I'm not clear how the money's going to come in. So could you go through that in a little more depth?
Yeah. Get back to that slide.
We can even go to the financials.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so our plan is sort of in the first year, we're going to give away these sensors for free. The reason why we're going to do that is because we just want to collect data to basically be able to refine our algorithms, so sort of bring in a lot of data. Almost there. Just to bring in a lot of data and then have these data points and sort of see, oh, you know, if there's a certain temperature, a certain level of vibrations, that's going to mean that, you know, the machine is, you know, gonna flame out in X amount of time. But after that first year and then the second phase where we're focused really on improving that algorithm, what we're going to be doing is we're going to actually charge our customers in order to access that data. Now, I'm going to talk a lot about the dependency that's going to be built, sort of because they're going to be used to having this service in the first 2 years, and then obviously they're going to be used to having constant analytics and recommendations on when their products are ready to be maintenance. So we do think that they're going to be willing to pay. And some of the things we noticed, there was an Accenture study that sort of said that predictive maintenance would be able to cut overall maintenance costs by about 30%. So what we figured was our customers are going to have this lower cost, and so we will be able to sort of extract that revenue from them without really cutting into their profit margins. So sort of creating this predictive maintenance system will allow us to create this sort of win-win situation where our customers are going to have lower maintenance costs because they're not going to have to go check every machine every month. They're only going to have to check the machine at the period of time when our recommendations tell them to. And then with that extra cost savings, they're going to dish out 10% of what their original manufacturing cost would have been in monthly revenue to us. So that's sort of how we make revenue, and also our customers don't really lose their profit margin.
So you're putting these sensors on every motor that goes out the door, is that, and you're essentially saying, hey guys, here's the data free for a year.
Yeah, exactly.
So what happens whenever a customer says, I don't want your data, or my application doesn't warrant it?
So, if I could go ahead. So really the point of providing, from a technology standpoint, the key issue for any firm that's trying to provide analytics is to have a volume of data. Now, how do you incentivize people to participate in a process of data collection? That has to require something where you are the one incurring the cost, right? None of our customers are going to come forward and say, like, we will bear the brunt of, you know, having this technology in our workspace, and we'll also give you ownership of the data. So there has to be some inbuilt incentive, especially in the first year where the focus is on data collection. Now, the reason why we thought that this is affordable and the reason why we thought this is reasonable is because that there are two perspectives. The first is the revenue generation, and the second is the cost reduction. And from both standpoints, you can boost profits. The revenue generation really comes on later in the process. But as far as cost reduction, that's a major change that not only we will see in the company, but also our customers will see. And the idea is that you incentivize them once to collect data. That data gives you access to an algorithm that helps you provide these analytics and these data services that no other competitor in the marketplace at present can. Your customer is stuck to you, not stuck to you, but really sticking by you because you're providing them with value in addition to just technology. And the benefit to you is that pretty much as soon as you're able to give that data and as soon as you're able to access that data, it gives you insights in your own manufacturing process of where you can reduce, say, defective goods, or where you can ensure that your motors are performing up to their full capacity, or changes you can make within your own supply chain and manufacturing process to reduce your own costs. The slide shows that about 30% boost in productivity from just having IoT integrated into the manufacturing process, and about 28.5% increase in revenue based on the trends that we've seen in the industry as a whole. On your customer side, you see about a 12% saving on scheduled maintenance. What we see here is a two-pronged incentive, but in order for us to enter this virtuous cycle, it's important to have some incentive that we give. And that's why, like, taking into our net present value, we took into account the loss that we incurred in the first year. And despite that, we see that this is something that can be recovered and something that can actually create lasting partnerships.
So how do you segment the market? Which market do you think has the greatest need for solution is this?
In terms of industries,
I mean, are you targeting integrated industries? Are you targeting end consumer appliances? So how would you segment the market? Maybe start there and then say which segment would have the most value where you think it. So who would be your first customer?
absolutely. Richard, did you want to?
Yeah, so I guess initially we were going to look at a lot of our OEM partners. So the ones that are really taking our motors and then assembling products to then give to end consumers. So an example I would give is Tesla, right? So we produce a motor that will go into a robotic arm that will eventually be used in the Tesla factory. And so we want to sell to the company that's going to produce the arm because we think that they are going to understand how Tesla is using the arm and be able to provide service when the arm breaks down. So we want to first go to our OEM manufacturers so that they can produce these products. First of all, we would make their production process more efficient, but then also help them give information to their final clients with the final products and give them more value as well.
Did you give any thought to licensing them?
Yes.
So, as we mentioned in one of our previous slides, we considered, actually it's going to be further down, so
Yeah.
previous on the click, but further down the slide deck. It works in reverse. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you want to go?
Yeah, so an option was to license this technology to other companies, but with technology being such a growing industry, countries are really trying to keep up with enacting data privacy and protection laws. From the data privacy and protection laws that we saw in some of our biggest countries, we believe that licensing the technology is not a smart idea. We think we'll hit a lot of roadblocks and will ultimately decrease efficiency.
And it's also important to remember that the technology, the data that we're collecting, individually, if we have ownership over it, there's very little that one, like data privacy invasion can do because it's a piece of the puzzle. However, if you license out that technology and you give someone who's collecting, say, additional pieces of data, they can really fit together that puzzle and then it becomes a privacy issue. Because for us, we're really leveraging that data, that limited data, like we said, minimization of data. We're leveraging that minimum data to give the best solution to us and to our customer. But if you license it out, you don't know who's using it in addition to what. And I think just having access to different pieces of the puzzle, having access to, say, not just like the motor's temperature and vibration, but also where it was manufactured, who's buying it, the individual who bought it. All of those pieces then become more problematic for a customer, and we don't want to incur those risks or put those upon our final consumers.
Could you go to your financial slide, the one where you have the NPV? And so the units on the right, is
They're
that
in
millions of dollars?
Tens of thousands of US dollars.
Tens of thousands of US
Yeah.
dollars. So that's, okay, so the 5,000 on the bottom, is that 5 million? What is it?
Yeah, so that'll be 50 million, so this will be about $75 million.
That's $75 million.
Yeah,
Okay.
in second year. I can walk you through.
No, that's okay, go back to that slide, that's
Yeah.
good. So I think it's smart of you guys to show that there's a little bit of a loss in our front year, right? That's pragmatic, because you have your fixed cost you have to absorb and such. And then you're going $75 million, so that's $100 million. You're going up to $350 million, is that what?
Yes, about that.
Okay, $350 million. I think that would be great. I guess I would challenge your NPV of $751 million based on that revenue stream and the profitability that would come off of it. I think that's a high, relatively high number. I'm not sure what you can. So you just may want to go back and check the math on that. That screams, oh my gosh, I'd invest in this every single day. Where do I sign up? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Projects like that don't come along very often.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But your trend line and things like that, it's a smart one.
In terms of getting, there's the availability, which is the predictive maintenance piece, the availability of a particular tool in a factory. Are there other pieces in a factory that are of value with the sensor?
Yeah.
So we actually, the way in which we envisioned our solutions is that this is really a part of a much bigger picture. And when we look at companies who are investing in sensors at this point in time and have a certain vision of how manufacturing is supposed to go forward, the sensor is just a tiny part of the puzzle, like I said.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sorry we couldn't answer that final question.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
More questions, all the questions.